This is Hebrew Hits presented by jtriberadio.com. I'm your host, Malia, and I sit down with people who live by the motto, it's what you do with what you have that makes a difference. Welcome to Hebrew Hits. I'm your host, Malia, and today I have the privilege of sitting down with the voice-over guy. He's literally awesome. I'm so excited I get to sit down with him. I know he's blushing over there, making some funny faces. But before I get there, I'd like to kindly ask you if you can please go subscribe to Hebrew Hits Radio on YouTube, and please hit that subscribe button, and please go follow us on all your favorite streaming apps. We are also available on Facebook and Instagram at Hebrew_Hits. Well, today is the 43rd episode of Hebrew Hits. I'm here to introduce Yaakov Berger. How are you doing today?
Hello, Malia. How are you? I am so excited to be here.
I'm good. I can't believe I'm finally. I can't believe I'm finally sitting down with you. I see you on LinkedIn. I feel like I know you already. This is so awesome that you're on my show.
You know, if I may say something, this reminds me of when I looked back, and we'll get into it a little bit more as the show progresses. I studied in Riverdale Yeshiva. We used to have a fellow that worked there. His name was Bob, almost like, I think he was Bob the Builder's cousin or something. They're named after the same people. And I remember him coming in one day talking about there was an issue with the plumbing, and he came in and said, "I got to tell you, the pipes are sweating." I don't know what he meant by that, but I know what he means now. The pipes are sweating. All nervous and everything. It's so much easier to record something when you're behind the microphone. It's just me talking, have the script in front of me. That's about it. I mean, here I'm actually speaking with another live human being, or a human being live, or both. It's like, wow.
Oh my God, I don't think I've ever laughed so hard at the beginning of an interview. It's hilarious. Are you really sweating? You're really nervous? You're very, very, very nervous?
No, my everything else is fine besides my leg. It's developed a twitch in the chair. So if you hear banging.
Why are you so nervous to be on my show? Come on.
It's anybody's show. I tell you quite, just to tell you the truth, that I actually was appointed gabbai of my shul to make the announcements, and Baruch Hashem, I do pepper it with some humor as well. And even though I've actually been making announcements for so many years, but I still, whenever I have to go up and I'm facing a crowd, I still get the jitters. I don't think it's that I'm nervous to actually speak with someone, or whether it's one person or audience, that type of thing. It's just, there's a concept called Ein Tzibura Tzibura, which is the fear of the crowd, but that's not really what it is. I think it's more the anticipation of, it's more of an excitement type of a twitch. It's really what it is.
I know. Well, I'm going to ask you really deep personal things that I really want to know about your life, and we're going to get really into it. It's going to get really, you're going to get very vulnerable. So yes, I think you should be a little bit nervous.
No. Okay. All right. Then, having said that, my other foot started twitching now.
Well, Yaakov, let me ask you this. I know where you are right now. You're living in Lakewood, and you're hilarious. How was your upbringing? And can you tell me a little bit about your background, how you really became who you are, like this hilarious guy? Tell me about your upbringing.
So my parents, we grew up on a farm in Idaho many, many years ago. We lived without any running water, without any electricity.
Are you serious?
No, I actually grew.
Oh my God!
Shucks, I couldn't hold that. Just without. Anyway, so I'm actually Brooklyn born and bred, which is incidentally, that's why some of the people that hear my voiceovers, some of the people some of them, they are able to detect the strong Brooklyn accent, like Rocky type of accent. But be that as it may, I grew up in Brooklyn, Flatbush all my life. Parents moved to Muncie in 1989. That's in terms of my, where I grew up. I went to, I can tell you the name of the yeshiva I went to.
Sure, whatever you like.
Sure, San Quentin. It's a prison that's in upstate New York. That was later in life. It took a while till I got there. Okay, too much humor is no good. Let's get serious now. No, the truth is, I went to Yeshiva Tefillos Melech in Brooklyn. I was there for about 10 years. My parents were founding parents of the yeshiva. Then after that, I went to learn in Riverdale Yeshiva for 7 years. Wow. Afterward, I went straight to Lakewood, whereas most of my friends went they went to Eretz Yisrael. My rebellion felt that there wasn't too much in it for me and that I wouldn't gain much from there. You're talking about like we're going like 60 years ago. There weren't that many yeshivas. So
I
not
hear.
60 years ago. Not 60 years ago. It
I
was
know, I
90.
know, I know.
It
I
was
get
in
your humor
92.
by now. I get it.
It was in 1992, or that I left. It was 93 actually. 93.
I wasn't even born.
See that? I'm giving away too much. You're gonna. I'm not telling you my birthday. Off year, I'll tell you because you can send. I'll tell you where to send my birthday checks to. But at any rate,
You're born in October,
that is
no?
correct. No, born July.
Oh, July 26th.
Okay, you're guessing that. Close.
Okay.
July 21st is my birthday. I'm not telling you the year. We'll keep it at that.
Okay, fine.
So at any rate, my friends went to Israel to learn, to study, continue their studies. I went straight to Lakewood. And I don't know if I mentioned to you, but like I mentioned to many people, it was probably more difficult for me to make that transition from Riverdale to Lakewood than it was actually getting married. And I'm not worried about my wife listening to this because she probably is not going to listen to this because she doesn't have a smartphone, thankfully. I made sure of that because this way I can get to do the quirky and crazy stuff and she will never ever see what I'm doing. She hears it from a lot of other people. My daughter comes in and says, Tati, my friends say that you must be so crazy funny at home. And they really don't know that I'm more serious when I'm not at home than when I am at home, but maybe that's for later. But let me just
Wow.
you on in terms of this. So why it was more difficult is because when I was, like I mentioned, in Riverdale Yeshiva, which were probably one of the greatest years of my life in terms of great rebbeim, great friends, and I went from a yeshiva of 120 bachurim to 5,120 bachurim slash Yungalite, where I went from being second oldest in yeshiva to being not very well known. So
Right.
it was quite difficult. A lot of people go to Lakewood do have that difficulty adjusting to it, which is why it's always recommended if people go with their chabura, with their group of friends that they studied with, they were together with years prior.
Hmm.
Like I said earlier, for me it didn't work out that way. It is what it is, but and that's basically that's in terms of the yeshivas that where I studied and so on.
Were you always used to being the loud, fun, entertaining person in your old school? And then when you came to Lakewood, you were expecting to be that loud person who was always, cheering people up, making jokes. And then you were like, oh my gosh, I don't know where I fit in.
That's a great question. So I tell you the truth. Loud, not so much loud. Funny, yes. Entertaining. I have some interesting pictures that I took when I was in Riverdale. But even though I wasn't necessarily the life of the party, and like I said, regardless if I would have been a humorist or not and been the comedian of Riverdale, I think that anyone in that situation, when you're going from being with your guys, with your chevra, with your friends, and going to yeshiva where you just have to make new friends at that age, that's pretty tough. So I wouldn't say I got there the first day in Lakewood and I got up on my soapbox and instead of trying to do stand-up comedy and all I heard were the crickets. I'm like, I don't believe this. I left Riverdale and no one's even paying attention to my humor. It was just the transition itself was very, very tough. Because not having my the folks that I grew up with. That's really what it was.
And you didn't go with any friends, right?
No, I mean there were a lot of people from my yeshiva that were already there, older chevra that had already been in Israel and then they came back. Which I just even off the top, thinking of the few people I know who have I have in mind, some close friends of mine, they made it all the more easy for me to make that transition. Again, even though they weren't my age, but because being in Riverdale with 90 to 120 bachurim, so it was a very close knit community. So even though those guys graduated before I did, they went to Israel. By the time I got to Lakewood, the older guys came back. So, and I was always friendly with them. That's one of the things, Baruch Hashem, I take pride in, not in a haughty way, but Baruch Hashem, always friendly with whether the guys younger than me, guys older than me. I always felt that I wasn't looking, there was no niche. It wasn't part of a niche to say these are my guys, have nothing to do with you, that type of a thing. And ultimately, it probably helped me that when I made that transition, it was so difficult not to have the friends from my age group.
Right.
these old guys that were there in Lakewood, remember, these guys are, a lot of them already married. They already had families of their own. So, but a lot of them, they brought me in. They, I was invited to many a meal on Shabbos and so on. So that made it easy. I have actually a great story about getting invited for Shabbos. It's a known thing here in Lakewood that a lot of times guys have a long week. So if you want to have a quick meal, Yeshiva has everything set up for you. You can have a meal, breakfast, lunch, supper, weekday Shabbos, Yom Tovim, the holidays, so on and so forth. At any rate, it was a hot summer day, and I was invited to eat by somebody's house for Shabbos day meal. So I get to the house and I'm knocking and I'm knocking and knocking. As we say in Hebrew, ein koil ve'ein oinen. Nobody was answering, nothing doing. So having no choice, after about a half an hour, 45 minutes, I went to the yeshiva and I put in like a 10, 15-minute meal, the quickest meal I've ever done. I would have put Speedy Gonzalez to shame with based on how fast I actually, ate that meal.
Oh my God.
So after the Shabbos, I found out that what happened was that the host got hold of me and he apologized. I'm so sorry. I'm sure you got the note that I left for you on your bed that I wasn't able to make it for Shabbos. And I'm like, I don't know how to break this to you. I never got a note. He said, Yaakov Berger is your name, right? I said, yeah. But at the same time, there was another Yaakov Berger who was in the dormitory as I was.
No way.
Took the note and he dropped it on the. So, we're like 25 years later. It's very possible that the host of the other Yaakov Berger is still waiting for him for the meal. In other words, the host, the other Yaakov Berger got the note stating, we're not here for Shabbos. We're so sorry. Those hosts are probably waiting for their guests. My hosts, they went wherever they went for Shabbos, and I ended up in the yeshiva. But you
never figured that out. You never spoke to him, asked him what.
At the time, you mean at the time?
Yeah.
I didn't put two and two together now, so that's fine. That was a 93, so that's like eons ago. That was decades ago. That was a
lifetime ago, because I wasn't born again. I wasn't born then.
It was a lifetime for many people ago. Yeah, that's true.
By the way, I'm very happy that you're bringing up the whole topic that you were nervous, like the whole friends thing. You had a lot of friends, in Riverdale, and then you came to Lakewood. I never knew that boys struggle with this. I always thought boys are chill. You go, boys have friends, but it's not like boys like chill with friends. Like girls, it's different. Like they have their other friends, and then it's hard for girls to break out if they go to a new school to start becoming friends with other girls. So I'm very happy you brought that up, that boys also struggle with it. I never ever thought boys would struggle.
Right, if they don't have their chevra. I mean, of course, that's you need. There's an expression in the Gemara. There's an expression in the Talmud that says "Oy chavrusa, oy misusa," which means either I have my friends, or it's like give me friends or give me death. Like give me liberty or give me death. Yeah. It's an actual quote in the Talmud that says that friends are everything, and especially making that transition without having my core group of guys. I dread even like something. I think back to those days, like whatever. Moving right along.
That's so hard though. Like, why did nobody want to go with you?
No, it's not a matter. It's not a matter of. I was the odd man out.
Right.
Because in my days, the folks in yeshiva, they went to the two main yeshivas or three main yeshivas. Today, there are many, many more yeshivas and many more options for boys to go to today. Really branched out a lot. But it was like the two brisk yeshivas, and then there was Mir Yeshiva, let's say. My friends went to the two brisk yeshivas. They went there, meaning that's where they were headed to next. As most of the people prior to our class, that's where they go to. But I was the odd man out because for me, I would have gotten lost in the Mir, and brisk wasn't the place for me. So it wasn't my speed. So I ended up working out.
Everything worked out in the end in Lakewood because you're still there today.
Right. So for me, today Lakewood's definitely a different place. It worked out for me in the sense of that Baruch Hashem, I did get married a year later. And obviously having that, so I mean, I get married in 94. And
how old were you?
I was, I see you're figuring this out. Not so fast. I'll make a deal with you. Everybody, all of your listeners, and you could do the math. And as long as you send me swag and you send checks to my address, which I'm not exactly giving you where it is, but suffice it to say that it's from an underground bunker somewhere in Lakewood, New Jersey, near Kimball Hospital. That's all I'm telling you.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm sorry. So I forgot. I lost the track
You
of
were
it.
saying how you got married a
I got
year
married.
later.
I was 24. I was 24 years old.
Oh wow. Okay.
24.
So you were 20. Okay, I'll figure out the math after the episode.
Yes.
But you got married a year. So that whole first year, how would you explain? Was that like challenging the whole year? How did you get through that whole first year in Lakewood?
It was, even how did I go through that first year?
Yeah.
It was tough. It was tough. But I want to share, and again, I had a great Bashert story, if you will, that happened in the process of actually finding my wife.
Mm-hmm.
The way it works is in Lakewood Yeshiva is that you have what we call what we call yeshivisha mesechtes or tractates. Again, for your listeners who this tract, 60 tractates is how the entire Shas or the Talmud is comprised of 60 tractates. And there are what we call the yeshiva mesechtes or tractates. There are typical like 7 or 8 of them that are typically, no matter which yeshiva you're in, there are certain cycles you go through. You always study the same ones. But then, because the Talmud is so large, and Judaism and the teachings and the Torah is so large, there are a lot of different venues, a lot of different areas of Torah that you can choose to study from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting the way Lakewood is set up is that like the main base medrash, they study these particular tractates, but across the street in the other building, that time they're learning other tractates that are not normally touched upon in regular yeshivas. Let's put it that way. So at any rate, so the at the time, the way it would work is that in the main base medrash, that's for basically all the bacher and the single guys. That's where they stay. That's where they study.
Mm-hmm.
Just ended up that way. Across the street was typically it was called Beis Eliyahu, which was interestingly enough, it was made of 10 trailers, little trailers put together. Today they knocked down the trailers about 5, 6, or 7 years ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful edifice that they erected over there. But be that as it may, those were after my days, after I left Lakewood Yeshiva. Still in Lakewood, not in BMG, Beth Medrash Gavos, still not in Lakewood Yeshiva. At any rate, so I sort of split with my learning partner, what we call a chavrusa. It didn't work out for whatever reason, even though I was in the main base medrash. So a guy, not a friend of mine, who was it again? Not the guy who was there, but be that as it may, he said, you know what? Why don't you come across and we'll study in the trailers and in the trailer building. So I did because listen, it wasn't like I only went to Lakewood to learn. I mean, to get married. But people say like that's the springboard to get married. I went there because for me, in terms of the next step in life, I wasn't going to Israel, and that was the next thing. Incidentally, I know that event I was going to get married from Lakewood Yeshiva as well. Fine. When a friend of mine heard that I was switching from the main base medrash, from the main study hall, to go across the street to the trailer building, he said, you know that single guys really, they don't come across the street, and for matchmaking purposes, for shidduch purposes, you sure it's going to work out? I said, listen, I came here to study. Wow. Again, of course, I was going to get married from Lakewood, but I came to study because I didn't go to Israel with the rest of my friends. If Hashem wants me to find my bashert, if Hashem wants me to find my soulmate, it will happen. I'm not worried about it. Well, guess what? A few weeks after I moved to the trailers, to that building, it was called Beis Eliyahu, the house of Elijah.
Oh, wow.
Basically, Beis Eliyahu, that was the name of it. So a few weeks after I moved there, so I found this out after I was already engaged. A friend of my future brother-in-law at the time was my future brother-in-law, right?
Okay, right.
Gets a phone call. His name was Yaakov. His first name was Yossi. Okay. Yossi gets a phone call from my brother-in-law Bensi. Bensi is actually his real name. They're both real first names. My brother-in-law is Bensi, and the friend of his name is Yossi. Bensi calls up Yossi. Hi, my sister is going out, and I'd like to know. Can I ask you a question about? Maybe you know who this guy is. So, okay, what's the guy's name? It says Yaakov Berger. So Yossi scratched Yaakov Berger. Oh, yeah, that's so funny because Yaakov Berger just moved into my room like 3 weeks ago. He's sitting on the same row as I'm sitting.
Wow.
So and this is already was like, it was a very crucial date for me, number 4, number 5, in terms of that. It was really serious at that point, and some real serious questions were being asked.
Hmm.
And it just happened to be, by the way, in Judaism, we don't believe in anything. There's no such thing as happenstance.
Right.
Purim stories happen. We're going to be reading the story of Megillah in 5 weeks. It's all
Wow.
about that is no such a thing as happenstance. Because when there's too many coincidences, that somebody's pulling the strings. But that's for a different time. But the point is that and I was really true to what I really felt that way. That if I'm
Hmm.
going to find my zivug when Hashem wants me to find it, here I am. I moved across the street, right next to my brother-in-law's friend, and he asked him some pertinent questions, and there you go.
Wow, that is really incredible.
Yeah,
I
Baruch
can't even
Hashem.
believe. And then if he would not have known you if you didn't move across the street, right?
Right. Yeah. And he even asked him. He asked him at the time. My sister is very interested in a guy that wants to do voiceovers. If he's not going to do voiceovers, forget about it.
Okay, you're joking.
Yes, I am. The voiceovers
Oh,
that didn't come till later.
wow. So you were already you're saying you were already dating your wife for like 4 or 5 dates when he called.
More right. But yeah, that's right. That's correct. Yeah.
Wow. So then, okay, so you went into yeshiva, you got married, and then what happened? You stayed
Then
there in
what
that
happened?
yeshiva?
So I was in the yeshiva, meaning it's Beth Medrash Gavolah. It's the largest yeshiva in the United States of
Hmm.
America. Today, it could be there's close to 10,000 students in a few buildings dispersed over a square mile area or so. I was never very good at math or area or trigonometry or algebra or whatever you need to measure area. Um, pi, something that I know.
Well, you eat a lot of it, no?
Yeah, which is why it's good that you only see my head. And so I was in the yeshiva for a solid. Meaning, after I got married, I was in Kollel also. Again, for
Yeah.
those listeners out there, for your listeners know, or they don't know, what Kollel is basically is that even after people, when say Orthodox Torah scholars, they like to carry on. They want to spend a few more years, even if ultimately they don't go into the field of, let's say, teaching rabbinics or things like that. They still want to start off their first few years of marriage in what we call kollel. Kollel,
Mhm.
forget the literal translation of it. I would do it more disservice if I tried to translate it. But be that as it may, so people spend some time in this what we call kollel even after they're married. You want to start off your marriage on that with that footing, so to speak. And I
Mhm.
was there for about 9 years. Now this is
Wow.
9 years, right?
So 9 years you didn't work, you just learned.
That's correct.
Do you feel that going into a marriage, learning at learning full time and not working yet is more beneficial for the marriage than working right away?
So again, I mean, this is a great question. It's every marriage is different, and obviously not everybody's looking for a co-little guy. But in terms
Right.
of my wife is a wonderful, wonderful person, and she wanted that. And again, we have to understand something. Again, for all your listeners out there, it doesn't work for everybody. It's not that's the way. That's not what that's not what we're trying to sell over here. It's a beautiful thing if it could work out. My wife, she actually has a master's in special ed here in Lake, which is she's very sought after in a particular field in special ed. She's been doing it for, I think it's close to 30 years now. And she wanted
Wow.
to be able to have someone that will spend some more time studying and learning. I'll tell you one of the questions that when we were dating, one of the questions we're asked is, so how many years does he want to sit and learn for? Hashem's in charge. It's not for me to decide how many. So obviously, I said, listen, I would love to be able to spend time sitting and studying Torah as much as I possibly can, so long
Right.
as it's not too much of a burden on my wife, on my parents, and so on and so forth. If Hashem decides for me that it's going to work out for only a week, because if things, God forbid, will arise, then it is what it is. But so
Right.
long as we can do it, and people are, I never felt for myself. I never felt I wasn't in the business, and I'm not saying that people do this. No one should get me wrong in this. I'm not in the business of pressuring my in-laws. You have to pay me because I have to sit and learn, or my parents. You have to pay me because this is what I'm doing. No,
Right.
if they were willing, that's fine. My wife was ready and willing. She wanted to have that. She wanted to have that base. She wanted to be able to start off marriage based on a real strong Torah footing, and something that would also eventually, as children, come into the world, for the children to see their tati, their daddy, their abba sitting and studying Torah, that also makes a very big impression. So that's
Right.
really where that is.
it takes a very strong woman to actually make that decision, and
Yes,
especially to say she wants her kids to see their father learning. So you got
that is
married,
correct.
you had kids right away, you didn't have kids. What was it? So
Right.
what happened over there?
So this is the interesting part, right? So we got married and we did not have any children for close to 6 years.
Oh,
And
wow.
obviously, without excuse me, without getting into the gory details, because obviously that's not for this forum, for this interview. But put it this way: um, if there's one place that's really tough, not having children, it would have to be Lakewood,
Wow.
because remember Lakewood, Kanai Nahara, Kanai Nahara, and as I say in Hebrew, Chen Yirbu, which will continue to grow. I'll give you an example. Just this week alone in Lakewood, in one of the local publications, there
Mhm.
are an average, and I'm not exaggerating, there are an average of 20 to 30 children born a week in Lakewood.
Wow.
It's a young community. It's
20.
always, yeah. Now, obviously, even though over the years it's turned into an older community as well because people
Mhm.
stay here. But, Kanai Hurry, you have a lot of young people coming in from Eretz Yisrael, even not Israel, other places. We're a young
Right.
community. And Baruch Hashem, it's what we call a real baby boomer society. So for me, forget about the actual challenge of not having children right away, but I mean, not forget about, but one of the difficulties of it was like, every day. So you go into the base medrash and you open up your Gemara by the Stender and you hear, oh, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov, Mazel Tov. And as you're hearing Mazel Tov, you slink lower and lower and lower into your chair because, you're not one of those people that have been blessed with a Mazel Tov yet. And it was a 6 years of it was a real roller coaster of a ride. I'm going to
Did
give the
people
short.
people were trying to be sensitive around you in Lakewood, or they would just shoot out Mazel Tovs without
Yeah,
even?
well, so again, see, Lakewood is a large place, so your friends would be more sensitive. It's interesting. It's one of the questions that always comes up when you deal with people that are in that parsha, and Hashem
Mhm.
should, I'm going to jump ahead for a second, and I know we're going to be discussing this soon, but right now I know for a fact there are over between 75 and 85 couples here in Lakewood that are waiting for their first child. So although
Wow.
it's a small percentage per se, vis-a-vis the rest of the community, but nevertheless, as Rabbi Pesach Krohn said it very succinctly, he said waiting for a child is for, let's say, a couple that has waited for 5 years. It's not
Mhm.
5 years; it's 60 months.
5 years, 60 months. You're saying because of babies?
It's not, no, no, no. Wait, those that are waiting to have their first child. It's
Yeah.
not that you're waiting for 5 years. It's waiting for 60 months. Every day, the waiting period, you look at it by the hour, by the day. You don't look at it like, well, it's
Wow.
not just 5 years, it's every month, 1 month, 2 months,
I
10 months, 24 months, 35 months. So that every day is like, it's interesting that, one of the people that Baruch Hashem that are Zocha, that merit to have children right away,
Mhm.
or one of the tricky things is for a friend or a sibling to want to relate that information to their friend, their relative, and so on. By the way, I have great news. Is it, do I say something or do I not say something?
Right.
Because you imagine you end up coming to a family simcha, and then you notice that one of your relatives or friends is expecting, like, surprise, like, why did you say anything to me? You know that I'm so close.
Right.
So it's a sensitive topic, and you have to know how to deal with it and what the proper thing. But overall, it wasn't like there were these. Listen, Amalia, with everything in life, my father passed away 7.5 years ago.
Mhm.
Right now, during the shiva, and people can attest to this. People that God forbid, I don't wish on anybody. Anyone that had to sit shiva, you're always going to have one or two people that are going to make like that stupid comment, and people mean well. People do
Yeah.
mean well. But unfortunately, it just comes out that they have nothing to say, that they have to feel like they have to say something. So
Mhm.
even not to compare the two in terms of someone that, God forbid, has lost a loved one, but in terms of even in the waiting game when it comes to
Mhm.
that, sometimes you have to be very sensitive what to say, not to say. Like, my wife would be carpooling with people to Brooklyn.
Mhm.
And there's my wife had toured in Brooklyn for 20 years before she procured jobs here in Lakewood, Baruch Hashem. But it's like,
Wow. She traveled all the time.
yeah, she traveled all the time. Obviously, as the
Wow.
family Baruch Hashem grew, we decided then, like, that's it. Now it's time to find the job in Lakewood. But like, you have a woman comes in the car and says, "Gosh, it's such a hard night. Beryl kept me up, and Shmerel was dancing, and Chaim was doing this and this, and like my wife is, she didn't say anything. It was like, yeah, I really feel your pain. That's so sad that you couldn't put your kids to sleep at night. So, but again, people don't really mean to do harm to others. It's just, it is what it is. But
and people are so involved in themselves that they don't even realize that there are other people out there that are struggling.
It happens, yeah. It happens.
So did you ever feel like you dove in so much and you were doing such good in the world, you were learning, and your wife was, being Moser Nefesh, for her to work, for you to learn? And did you feel like maybe your tefillos weren't getting answered? Like, how did you keep your tefillos?
Absolutely not.
Emunah?
Absolutely not. Because there's no such a thing as a tefillah that goes to waste. There's no such a thing. And obviously, we were working on our emunah b'tachon. It's funny to segue into something else, which we're going to discuss right now. But emunah and b'tachon, I want to tell you and tell all your listeners, if there's one thing that we have to be working on, especially today's day and age, and if there's anything that the past 10 months has taught us, is that there's one in charge. There's one individual in charge. Because looking what we've been through, you can't make it up. And again, I know this is not the topic of discussion, but you have to understand something, that were we to discuss the virus just for a moment, again, this is not the topic really, but I think it's very important to know if a person is going to get it, when they're going to get it, how they're going to get it, where they're going to get it, how long they're going to get it. It's unbelievable. This was such a God-designed disease. It doesn't make sense. Look, right. My son had it last year, Purim. The rest of my family didn't have it till 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah.
Wow.
I have no idea if I had it or not.
Wow. So it's for sure.
You can, yeah. So, but putting that aside, the idea I'm trying to stress is that if there's one thing that gets us through our challenges, no matter what they are, it's realizing that we have a God above that loves us. He will take care of us. And the more we understand and thank Hashem and realize that the truth is, as difficult as things are, but if we have so much more to be thankful of, we have so much more than that which we don't, it will shock you. I just give you an example. I'm sitting over here in my friend's office. There's a fan, electricity, books, windows, a computer screen, paper, a chair. Who provided this to us? Do you ever think for a second that maybe Hashem? No, it was the guy named Mr. Table that invented the table, or Mr. Chair that invented the chair. No, every single things as simple as that. A pen. Who invented it? Who gave that to us?
Wow.
We take things in life. We take things for granted. So much of what we have, we take for granted, and we have to realize that if we focus on that and use that as a springboard to thank Hashem, when we thank, by the way, you should just know that it is mentioned in a lot of the books in the Sfarim, that the more we thank, the more we get from Hashem. And it's a very simple thing. It's a very simple reason. I'll tell you very simply why. Because Hashem sees that you appreciate that I'm giving you something. If I borrow money from somebody, and I thank him I'm over effusive in my prayer and my thanks. And hey, he really appreciates that. I'll be more than willing to give it to him again if he needs another loan. Right. Our Father in heaven is any different? Of course not. So getting back to the actual challenge that we went through, was obviously challenges are challenges. Like there's so many challenges in life, but you focus on that and realize that Hashem really has us, and we're living in Hashem's world.
I need to ask you this because I just need to know the answer. Did you always have this kind of emunah when you were going through the struggle? I understand that looking back now, years later, once you have children and, you look back and you're like, yeah, emunah. When you're inside a struggle, it's so much harder to feel that way. Obviously, now that you're outside, of course, you're emunah and everything. But I want to know how it was when you could not have kids for those 6 years. You really always believed this is Hashem's world. This is Hashem's plan, and you weren't put down. Like you didn't feel sad. Like how is that possible?
That is a phenomenal that is a great question, and I will tell you the truth. To a certain degree, it's almost hard to answer that question because over the past many months, I've been working so hard in this particular area. I remember my father of blessed memory telling us many times, he says, Yaakov, he says, you're going to see, you're going to have children one day, and then it's going to all be like just a bad dream and so on. You have to understand something that emunah and bitachon, having faith, trust, however we understand, they're just words. English or any language does a very big disservice to what the Hebrew words really mean. But emunah is sort of the practice of having faith, and bitachon. Emunah is learning about it. Faith and the bitachon is actually putting it into practice. That's really what it is. But what I want to bring out is that in the Torah it says that it's when the Jews were about to cross the sea of reeds, when they witnessed that tremendous miracle as the sea split. You try saying sea split fast. As the sea split before them. It says, "Vayiminu b'Hashem v'Moshe Abdo." They believed in Hashem and Moshe, his servant. 3 or 4 days later, they're already complaining that they don't have any water. Wait, hold on a second. You just saw the greatest miracle possible, the splitting of the sea, and then you're complaining that your worried Hashem's not going to give you water? What I'm trying to bring out is that emunah and bitachon is a lifelong process. And then you can have ups and downs. It's human nature. Just the key is don't lose sight of the big picture. Don't lose sight of the picture. You're going to have ups and downs. Things are going to happen, but don't lose sight of the big picture. Of course I had bad days. Of course I was angry. Of course I was sad. How dare my wife's friend not tell her, or I can't remember this. A friend of my wife told her that she was expecting the chutzpah that she even told her. How could you mention that to somebody? But there's nothing, on the contrary, I thought that the truth is that's not the right attitude. What, she shouldn't say anything. I think it was correct.
Your wife was in tremendous pain, for sure.
There were moments, but it takes two to tango. And Baruch Hashem, my wife and I, we really complimented each other. I feel like if one was down, the other was up. The other was down, the other one. Meaning, and that's what we gave each other tremendous chizuk. Chizuk, brachas for many, many people, Baruch Hashem, and that's the way it goes. It wasn't that there was any personal issue. She was just upset that at that point we still hadn't, we hadn't had any children. But I want to fast forward, if I may, unless you want to take the lead from here. But I would like to fast forward, if I can.
I just want to ask you another question.
Sure, please, sure.
Did you ever tell your children the struggle you had with having kids, or your kids do not know anything?
No, they know. I mean, because I tell you the truth, I think they've heard it from other people that have struggled, that have come to our doors. And our children know that. I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, and you talk about being very vulnerable. I will tell you that and the funny thing is that my kids were laughing about this the other day. I had gone out to daven mincha or Meir, I forgot what it was, and my oldest daughter, she's 17. She says, she tells me, Tati says, Mommy just told us that after every single kid was born, there was more than one person in the room crying. And I'm like, I'm not embarrassed about it. I mean, it's the truth, because it was, Baruch Hashem, we merited to have 6 beautiful children, and each one is a blessing from Hashem, and that at that moment of joy, it was tears of joy. I mean, without a doubt. We don't get into the gory details of them because there's no point to doing that. But they understand. Right. They know that we waited. We've availed of ourselves, my wife and I. Whoever finds themselves in this situation, we try to do whatever we can. And
I'm very happy we're talking about this, because there are so many people across the globe who are struggling with having kids and different things. Right. And I'm happy that we're able to bring it to attention that after 6 years of you waiting, you have 6 kids. It gives hope. And it shows that there is, light at the end of this dark tunnel.
There is. I mean, listen, I can only say this, and again, I can't get too much into detail. There are varying degrees of how severe it is. And I will say that others do have it much more, the situations that some couples find themselves in is much more trying than what we had. And once we had a game plan, Baruch Hashem. There are other more severe, situations and so on. And
now
there is no one. It's not a cookie cutting type of thing, because then in this area there's a lot to be discussed. And but one thing I find was what's amazing about the Jewish people in general is that no matter what situation a person finds themselves in, there is a friend, there's a family, there is an organization that is there to help you. It doesn't make a difference. It's unbelievable. From literally from life to death, God forbid, there is, and no matter what situation, there are free loan societies, organizations to help with infertility, organizations to help you try to find people shidduchim, people to find clothing, food. It's anything. I mean, and that's just. I mean, that's just that's so petty just to name those few because there's so many out there.
It's
So
very
many.
true.
We're in it. We're in it together in so many areas of life. I mean, like I mentioned before, my father passed away 7.5 years ago. One of my heroes, or one of the organizations, the greatest are here. My heroes in this and that in terms of death is Miss Askin, for example. I mean, just and again, and this is not the God forbid. No, I'm not pointing out one as opposed to the other. That's not what I'm doing here.
Right.
Miss Askin, they come in like before my father's buried already. You know that at home, Miss Askin is setting everything up, making sure they have everything in place for you. That's just one example of so many. The point is not to name all the chesed organizations out there because we know how many are out there.
Right.
But as we're talking about in terms of infertility, the two organizations that come to mind, which is definitely without a question, is A Time and Bonei Olam. Two organizations who are amazing in their own right that have done so much for these families, for these couples waiting for their first child, that it's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
It is unbelievable. Now, before we get to asking you the question of how you fit into the mantra of the show, I do want you to talk about how it was having your first child after waiting 6 years. What did you feel like when your wife gave birth and you able to take your child home?
It was 10:14 on a Friday night. See, I remember the time, 10:14 on a Friday night.
Yeah.
It's impossible to describe it. As a friend of mine described it, when I came back to yeshiva, the shab, my son, our oldest, was born on the Friday night. Came back to yeshiva. I was there Sunday morning, or I think it was Sunday morning. So a friend of mine, he said, Yaakov, he said, your face looks like a 1,000-watt bulb.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
It was the feeling of the euphoria is not to be believed. It's something amazing. You feel such thanks to Hashem, and you just you can't even put it in writing. Can't put it in writing. It's just unbelievable. Unbelievable.
Wow. I can't even imagine just being in that hospital room, with you and your wife.
It's even funny. Not funny, but it happened on Shabbos on Friday night.
Wow.
And I couldn't call up anybody.
No way. Oh my gosh.
It was Shabbos.
How was it being in the Lakewood, in what is it called, the base medrash, and you're saying Mazel Tov, like everybody's saying Mazel Tov.
It's finally when you're the guy that's getting the Mazel Tov. It's an amazing feeling. It's a really amazing feeling. I give a bracha to every person that's waiting for their simcha. That whether it's a child, whether it's a shidduch, that they should merit to feel that moment of euphoria when it happens, very soon. It's really amazing.
Amen. Hazrat Hashem to everybody soon. Now I got to ask you, the entire mantra of this show is, it's what you do with what you have that makes a difference. So how did this whole experience, how did this struggle, this really, really hard challenge, make a difference for you in your life? And how did you use it to, make a difference in others' lives?
Well, you want to hear something, funny, or maybe not so funny. I should be funny because I suppose I do have a sense of humor, and it hasn't been very humorous the past half an hour. It's been very, very somber. But the truth is that obviously I'm a voiceover, and I think that let's discuss that for a second and segue into this idea here. I think that would be very interesting how that works out. So, how did I become a voiceover?
Yeah.
So I was doing work for Lakewood's Cure organization, Project Gesher Lakewood Links. What year was that? 97, 98? I forget already. I'm sorry. And the office of Lakewood Links Project Gesher, they got a phone call one day. Is there anyone that works for your organization that you could recommend that will be good for doing the intros for various segments of Chazak? The Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation?
Chofetz Chaim.
Okay, Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation called up the office. They needed someone that would do the intros for their 5-minute snippets of Divrei Chizuk that they had in the Chazak hotline. So
Mhm.
one of the secretaries over there somehow threw out my name. I don't know if it was the deep voice. I have no idea what did it. She recommended that I do it. Now, basically, it started off with that. It was
Well,
today's
your team
segment.
took quite fire.
Well, listen, I don't know, like, yeah, but you do a great job. You
Oh,
just put
thank you.
you just put me out of business. It's I forgot exactly how it started, but basically it was very repetitive. It was the same thing as like, in today's segment we will be discussing a rabbi or rebbitz and so on, or yesterday's segment was discussing this or this topic. In today's segment, rabbi or rebbitz and so on will continue on that theme and so on and so forth. And I
Mhm.
did like tons of this over and over and over again. That was my first stint with voiceovers, and I saw that I had something, there was something there.
Mhm.
um, and then actually, with the blessing of my Rosh Hashiva, I decided to take it up a notch, and then to go into the voiceover industry, to take lessons for radio and commercial.
Oh, cool.
So I think it was my wife that actually did the research for me, and she came up with the name of a company of a voiceover teacher in the city, Manhattan.
Okay.
And the way it works is that you go down to the teacher studio for a consult, and
Mhm.
they give you a few papers of real narrations, real commercials or stuff that have been played on radio, on television. They have you do a read. They can feel you out to see if you have what it takes. I mean, if you sound like this, it could be you make a good Barney, but it doesn't mean that you make a good voiceover. We'll get into
Right.
voices. We'll get into voices later, perhaps. At any rate, so the teacher saw that I have what it takes, and there are different packages that you can do. The 8 lessons, 10 lessons, 12 lessons, whatever it is. I didn't have to take many lessons to get where I had to go. Now, when I say where you have to go, typically one of the first, or after you do the 8, 10, 12 lessons, and they help you tweak, and there are many styles. You turn on the radio, you hear
Yeah.
many styles of voiceovers, different products, different strokes, different folks, different commercials for different products. The most important thing, and what leads up, those lessons lead up to the demo. The demo in the voiceover industry is probably the most important tool that you have, because that's your
Okay.
business. That's your business card.
Okay.
Now, I'll be honest. The truth is that over the years, I've never really upgraded my demo so much, because what I do is a lot of the recordings are on my phone. So even though people give out as a business card, they'll give out like demos if they're meeting people throughout their career. They'll give out voiceover demos to different people, and you're always upgrading it and adding new stuff and so on and so forth. So for me, basically, what people like to hear, now where I'm at, I was doing this for close to 20 years. So
Mhm.
I'll send out different recordings of institutions or stuff that I've done. I'll send it out to them via WhatsApp or email, so on and so
Right.
forth. But at the time when I started doing it, and by the way, I do want to mention that it was at this point I started going for voiceover lessons. We merited already having our first son in
Right.
2000, and our daughter was born in 2003. So I forgot. I think it was around the year 2000. Actually, I think it was before my daughter was born. Our oldest daughter was born, that I started getting into the voiceover industry. Be that as it may, so I had my first demo was 2 minutes 20 seconds. That
Okay.
demo is anything on there from the BMW 5 Series, the ultimate driving machine, to it's snowing on Monday, raining on Tuesday. I gotta get away. Paul's Pranks. We got a delivery for you here. We got 2 pounds of quicksand and a bag of cement and some fake noses. I didn't order any of that. What's that all about? I mean, I don't know. I'm just quoting. I'm just saying over stuff from my demo. Just
Mhm.
repeating myself for my demo. That is, and you send it out, and then what happens? You have your demo, and then you
Mhm.
send what you're supposed to. Now, again, just to clarify something in terms of the voiceover industry, there's always room for growth. It's funny. Just yesterday, I was looking at a clip from a voiceover, and he said, "I never feel like I forgot the exact words that he said, but there was something like I'm always a student of the voiceover industry, even though he's been doing it for many years. Because the
Interesting.
point is, meaning to say, you can always learn. There's always room for improvement. I always try to improve on this. It happens
Mhm.
to be that doing so much work as I've done for so many firm institutions, there's a typical style of voiceover that they're looking for. So it's so I don't really have to deviate too much from it.
Right.
but I'm always looking to hear other people. And you turn on the radio, you watch a clip of how people do advertisements. It's you understand where they're coming from much better, especially
Yes.
because being a voiceover, you have to remember something, that when you're selling a product and you're on the radio, you have to envision your audience sitting right in front of you and you're selling them something.
Right.
So like if I'm not talking to anybody, you know, I've actually done this with people where I try to help people who want to get into the voiceover industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll be talking with them, and then I'll say, can you hold on one second? Yeah, hi, Glory. What? He did what again? Okay, listen to me. Tell the Rebbe, no, this is not the first time we've done this. He had no right throwing a spitball at the Rebbe. The Rebbe threw a spitball at Yankel? Okay. As soon as I hang up, what did I just do right now? I just
You just
broke out into
acted
a
it out.
fake. I just acted it out, right? So that's
Right.
really voice acting. That's really what it is. Um, at any rate, so I sent out the demo. I know, I'm sorry, I'm jumping all over the place here, but I sent out my first demo to about 10 people, and the first guy that picked up the demo and started hiring me for jobs was a fellow named Chaim Rosen of L'Chaim Video. At the time, L'Chaim Video.
Okay.
He's a very sought after videographer here in Lakewood. And this is where it gets interesting, how we sort of go, how the voiceover industry and the situation of infertility, how sort of they met. I mean, it was at this point, like I mentioned, that Baruch Hashem, we already had our first child.
Mm-hmm.
What was interesting about it is that the first real video that I narrated was for Bonei Olam.
Wow.
So now it's just now Bonei Olam, they began in Brooklyn. They opened up their chapter in Lakewood like about 20 some years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, I do want to say something interesting just for the record, that although I volunteer a tremendous amount for them, but Baruch Hashem, because we had other resources, we never had to come on to the assistance provided by Bonei Olam. Nevertheless, understanding, like I mentioned earlier, what such great organizations such as A-Time and Bonei Olam, what they do to help. So I was very sensitive to that. And as soon as I heard that Bonei Olam was opening something in Lakewood, and they had their first parlor meeting, I immediately jumped on board, and I've never looked back since. I mean, it's a volunteer basis, and I try to help out. I try to help with them with whatever I can. So
it's amazing that your worlds collided. Like, it's amazing that you had this struggle, and then your first job was with this organization who deals with infertility.
That's right. What was also great about it is that the voiceover for me was something very personal. So it was almost like a real voiceover. And I've done for Bonei Olam, I've done many voiceovers for them.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a lot of acting gigs for them. In that, when the videos that came out many years ago, the first videos for Bonei Olam here in Lakewood, and obviously and for beyond, so they would the visual would be of a couple waiting for a child, and then as Amir said, and then as things progress, Bonei Olam's involvement, and then obviously the videos end with the beautiful newborn baby coming onto the screen, and so on and so forth. So for me, the voiceover was very, very easy to do, so to speak, because I was really able to put myself into the various segments of the script. Was easy for me to work with, because we went from the sad part of waiting, or not say the sad part, the tough part, the trials, the tribulations, waiting, and then finally being able to be zocha to have our first child.
So you did the voiceover part and the acting, or just the voiceover?
Yes, I have done for Bonei Olam, I've done at least acting in 2 of their videos, and must have narrated at least 3 of their videos for sure.
So was your real child in that first video that you did, when you were, the first one that you said you're waiting for a child, then you had a child?
So it's interesting. So now that I remember, so I had mentioned this to you, remember, earlier, but now it comes to mind. I think that in the videos that I narrated and acted in, so I don't think my kids were in that one, but I remember now that Ari Goldwag made a special song for Bonei Olam a few years ago.
Okay.
And in the video, I was the actor, not the narrator. It was the actor, not the narrator. But towards the end, it was. I remember the part snippets of the video where I'm putting on my kittel before Yom Kippur, and there's only 2 candles, and different scenes that we filmed throughout Lakewood of like me standing by one of the parks here in Lakewood, just like looking sad, forlorn, solemn, as thinking like, when am I going to have kids? And then as the music video, comes towards the end, and obviously there's a much more of
Happier.
the happier thing, a happier end.
Yeah.
I can't get the word in my head. Happy. Always have a hard time getting that word in my head. Have ending on a happier note. So we actually videoed 2 of my youngest kids running across in front of the video. And when they actually showed the video at the Bonei Olam dinner that year, I actually got choked up with emotion watching it. It was almost as though I was like removed, just like not a bystander, but I was an audience watching this guy having gone through those struggles, and then he finally having a child, and when it was really me. It was my story. So
it's incredible to hear your story, and that you literally went to do voiceovers and acting, and for Bonei Olam, because it's as if Hashem put you in that situation because he knew you had the talent, and he knew that you were going to be able to uplift and bring hope to so many other people struggling. So I could be totally wrong. I really want to know your opinion, but I feel a little as if Hashem put you specifically, Hashem could have given you any struggle, and Hashem specifically gave you this struggle specifically so that he can use your talent and use you, and it will be so much more personal. Imagine you didn't have this struggle. Imagine Hashem gave you something else, and you still were going to go record for Bonei Olam and do their voiceovers, but you weren't going to be able to put your whole self into it as much as you wanted to. But you can't feel what a struggling parent is feeling if they don't have kids. Hashem gave you the struggle, and now you're using your talents and your struggle to literally bring hope to these parents and help them.
I definitely hear that point. I mean, I tell you the truth, it's not, technically speaking, could be they could have found another voice actor and have been really this and that, because obviously that's what actors do. But like you said, I think that Hashem gave me that opportunity, that here I was starting out on a new, not a mission, but starting out something new, doing voiceovers. And on the contrary, that Hashem gave me the opportunity, like you said, that through my struggle, not only just to be able to help out other people, that and with the right emotion and the right diction, and even on the film to be able to put all that emotion in it, but even for myself, that it really became it. Believe it or not, I firmly believe that where the voiceovers began and meeting. I mean, at that meeting point between Bonei Olam and the voiceover and the beginning of my career in voiceovers, that really propelled me further, because when people saw the video, they said, hey, there's a guy here in town who does voiceovers, that's pretty good, and that was really the beginning of my voiceover career.
Did you ever say in those videos that you really struggled with having kids, or you left that out? You just were a voice actor.
Yeah, that was just a voice actor. Yeah,
I feel like it would be so impactful if you would have said, "Oh, I went through the struggle."
Yeah, but you got to do what the client wants, right? But the truth is, though, but many times afterward, I'm not. I mentioned this earlier. I try not to make too much of a deal with it in terms of definitely with my children over there, because I don't need to stigmatize them. Oh, my tati and mommy are like whatever it is. But if there's any way that my wife and I can help people that have struggled with this, then that's what we're here for. And I told people that have watched the videos, and like I said, I must have done three videos at least for Bonei Olam. Wow. That I'm not embarrassed to do it, because anything that I could do to help people in this situation, I will. Add to that the fact that Baruch Hashem, I have this talent of being a voiceover that will, just adds to it. So Baruch Hashem, that worked out pretty nicely.
So that's how you would say it's that your literal struggles that in your life apply to the mantra of it's what you do, it's what you have that makes a difference, which is the entire theme of this show.
I find it amazing how those two things mesh. That here I am, where Hashem gave me this talent. It's almost, I'm not sure which one brought out the best in the other. Did Bonei Olam bring out the best in the voiceover? Did the voiceover bring the best in Bonei Olam? I mean, that somehow they mesh together, where it's almost like the struggle that I went through gave me the impetus to put so much into my voiceover career job, to really put it with such emotion that and the voiceover is all about different emotion and so on and so forth, that they sort of complemented each other in a certain way, you know.
It's
But yeah,
really
but
incredible.
I was able to take that talent and put it there, and Baruch Hashem, I'm where I am today.
Amazing. I'm mind boggled from your whole story. It's really incredible. Now, let's get into voiceovers. I have so many questions.
Sure, go ahead.
The first thing I want to ask you is, how many voices can you actually do?
This is a very, very important thing to discuss, and I'll tell you why. Voiceovers is not necessarily about the voices. There's voice animation and there's doing voice acting. You have to remember, like when I was going through my demo with you, some of the snippets before, you have to remember there's the trailer voice. In a world filled with knishes, only one bottle of mustard will be used. I just made it up. I don't even know why I said that. It's just so weird. But then
That's why.
I'm very hungry. I'm starved. But then you have, but then you have people that are confused. What am I doing with myself? Why am I here? Then wow, I am so thirsty. Oh my gosh, it's raining again. I can't believe it. The Yankees won. You understand? So I just gave you in 1 minute, half a minute, very different emotions. That's not that's me being my voice, doing different styles of what my emotions are.
Right.
Happy, sad, thinking.
Right, same voice. It's different, right.
That right now, there's another industry which I'm saying I'm not as much as I would love to be involved. And then there's the sound, there's the voices where you're either coming up with your own characters, or you can imitate other people or imitate other characters. Now, I will tell you that in one of my lessons that I took for voiceovers, so I had asked my teacher about animation and so on. So she says, here, look at this picture here. It was a picture of Herman in one of the comic strips. Herman has a very long face. She says to me, look at this picture and what would he sound like to you? That's how you come up with the voice. What I'm trying to bring at is that so again, there are a couple of things. Number one, there's just regular voiceover acting where you're selling a product and there are different emotions that you put into it and so on. Then there's actually characters. Now, in voice characters, there's imitating other people. There's like Dr. Needles, where I'm imitating Snoopy. Right. I'm Shaloopy Shapiro. Where again, it's not my. I'm just imitating.
You do that very well. Are you him?
No, I wish I was. Not Shaloopy, but and then there's Dizzy. And there's, quick, Shinoki, get the news machine. We have to change this people. So that's just me because I have a good ear, so I can listen to a character. But that's not my character. That's A.B. Rottenberg's character.
Imitate me if you can. Let me see what you can do.
Okay, my name is Malia, and I have new swag. Of course, I can't.
That is not me at all.
Of course, it's not you because it's very hard. No, for a male to imitate a female, it's I would have to work on that, but I don't. I mean, you could do things like, I have my new swag. But that's just me as a man being feminine, which is weird.
Right.
So I don't.
Right. No. Yeah.
That's not what we're looking. That's not what it is, right? So, you know, you have to. Today, even if I could, sound like so many of the other people, like I could sound like a tough guy. Or maybe I can even sound like Bugs Bunny, right? That's okay. So those are voices that are popular out there, but they're not my voices. I mean, I'm not saying it's not a talent. I mean, you can go out there and throw these things out, and I've done this for people. And one of my favorite moments is actually when I went to visit my mother in Muncie a few weeks ago. She didn't know I was going to be. She didn't know I was going to be there. So I knock on the door, and my mother said, "Who's there?" Ja, entschuldige, ich habe gekommen von Eretz Yisrael. Ich habe 18 Kinder. I have 18 children. I have to marry you 10 of them right now, please. And my mother said, "I'm sorry, I can't help you right now." I'm sure I understand. Even if you give me $1, a few more dollars, it's good. Anything, please help me out. Wow. So then I dropped it on my mother. Mommy, it's me. You can open the door.
Oh my gosh.
So today you have people in the voice character industry,
right,
that have made that have done 300 to 500 of their own voices. I can't say that I'm there yet. I will tell you that if I'm driving and all of a sudden a crazy voice pops into my head, I'll quickly hit the record button and put it down as that'll be my template. If I have to, draw on that at any other time, I'll do that. You know. So two things: is it a kunst, as we say in Yiddish? Is it a talent to be able to imitate a famous voice, a politician, a rebbe, a teacher, a character? It is. But I can't call it my own per se, simply because I didn't develop that thing. Again, not to take away from anyone that could do it, because it's a tremendous talent. Today, the truth is that there are so many characters out there that if I try to do something myself, some of them say, "Oh, I know that already. That's Scooby Dooby Doo," which don't even ask me to do it because I can't. I can't do Scooby Dooby Doo.
Oh my gosh. So let me ask you this question. Let me ask you this question. Which voice, when you say, I know it's not a voice, I guess which emotion is the hardest for you to do?
Which emotion is hard for me to do?
Like, is it hard for you to cry? Is it hard for you to be super excited? Is it hard for you to be scared? Is it hard for you to be nervous and worried?
No, nervous and worried is by me is second nature because I'm a nervous person. So I could very. It's not a question. That comes very easy. Did you hear that?
No, you're very nervous. You're just acting funny.
Did you hear that?
No, you're just trying to be funny for the video.
No, I'm trying to be nervous for the video.
Oh. Wow, that was very good. So you would say that which emotion would you say is the hardest for you then?
So what's interesting? Maybe being sad. I'm not sure. It could be. And one of the things it sort of rubs me the wrong way to a certain degree is people who are acting, especially being sad when they're not. And I'll tell you why. Because the truth is, there are a few ways that they do this in that industry. Some people find it hard to cry, so they put drops in. It makes it, But what bothers me is the people that are able to cry. I don't want to say bother me because there's a friend of mine that's listening to now. He's going to be upset about this because he actually could cry literally on the spot. He has that thing. A lot of times, actors will think in their mind of a loved one that they lost to get them into that moment. There was a famous Rosh Yeshiva that lost a grandchild, and within 24 hours later or something, he lost a friend, and he was asked to eulogize, and he didn't want to because he was afraid that when people saw him break down and start crying at his friend's funeral, it's not the real emotion. The emotion is really from the grandchild that he lost earlier.
Oy.
So I don't. So he didn't even eulogize his friend. He felt that it wasn't emes. It wasn't, The truth is, though, we're all voice actors. So, you're selling the product, which you may not. But I don't know if it's really a contradiction. Meaning to say that when you get yourself as an actor and you start crying because you're thinking about your father or my father died 7.5 years ago, it's almost like it's not real. So I'm using my father's death to use it so I can shed a tear. It doesn't sit that well with me.
It doesn't sit well, right? I hear that.
But then again, if we're acting, then why act if it's not real, right? But I think it's a little different because when you know something is fiction, it's fiction. I mean, you say when you know that you're acting and it's fiction anyways. But if I'm really selling a product and I have to sound sad for it, then you're really trying to sell something. Like in the example I gave of the Rosh Yeshiva saying it, that's a real scenario where he may be doing something or his emotions are something that's really not for this individual. So, but I'm getting too deep over here, and I don't like doing deep stuff. So let me get back out of the pool. Pool.
Okay, I'll ask you the next question I have for you is: have you tried to get onto TV with commercials? And if not, if you only stick with the Jewish world, why don't you try to go to TV?
So it's a good question, and the simple answer simply is when you say TV, you don't actually mean acting as much as just commercials. You mean
commercials, voiceovers, radio, non-Jewish radio, just
I have no anathema to it whatsoever. First of all, because I do work full time for a charity organization, so that really takes up my time. I have the flexibility to be able to do these smaller voiceovers. Is it something that I would pursue? Most definitely. To be honest, I don't want to get too much into the entertainment industry because it's not that it's a real entertainment industry. I don't want to get too lost in there But for no reason other than the fact that I'm pretty busy as it is. That's the
Right.
only reason why I haven't pursued it further. In
You
other words,
do
if
so well on TV. It's such a good way
probably,
to voiceover.
yeah,
Amazing.
I mean, the voiceover industry is a pretty packed profession, and there's a lot of people in the industry.
Yeah.
It's worked for me well, Baksham, in the film world because, like, I'll tell you that it's, even though I mentioned that I acted on the Bonei Olam videos, but that acting wasn't really acting in terms of actual dialogue or monologue. That was just visuals because
Ah,
I was doing the narrating. So I was
okay.
narrating what you were seeing on the screen,
Right.
right? So there's the acting, and the narrator is bringing out the emotions that's going through the individual that you're seeing on the screen, which some of them just happen to be me. But
Right.
but I have actually acted in videos. I was in a couple of years in the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation to make a Tisha B'av video. I acted in a few of those videos, and this
Yeah.
all came about through the voiceovers, by the way.
That's
I
right. It's
also
awesome. And
I
there's not that
acted,
many people. There's not that many religious Jews who do voiceovers, right?
not that many. There are a few of them, and they're all very talented in their own right.
Yeah.
But there aren't that many in the. I mean, hard to come by a voiceover that doesn't have a problem pronouncing Chaim
Right.
or any Jewish word for that matter. And a lot of times you'll hear the Jewish organizations that these institutions that do hire non-Jewish voiceovers, but the words would be simple enough that they could
Right.
pronounce it. Like
Yeah.
one thing's for certain, that bakery at 13th Avenue is not selling any challah
Right.
because if the guy had to sell challah, he's going to be the challah and bulkaloch. Forget about it.
So let me ask you
So
this question. If you could be on TV, right? If you would be on TV acting out any part, what would that be?
you mean in terms of a commercial or an actual actor?
In terms of a commercial, using your voice, using your talents, what would be your favorite job that you want to do? What would be what's your dream gig basically in the voiceover
Wow.
industry in the world?
That's a tricky question. I know it was one of the questions I was supposed to prepare an answer for. And I thought that by the time we get to the show, I would have had an answer, but I'm still stuck on that one. I don't
You have
know.
no idea?
You know what's funny? What's funny is that the past couple of films that I've actually acted in, and I mentioned this to you in passing the other day. There's two films that I did. Last year we put out a film called The Skull of a Genius, produced by Baruch Perlowitz, where that in
Yeah.
itself, I thought it was interesting how I got to that gig. And we just finished filming about 6 weeks ago another film called Desperate Measures, which is also going to be a very, very, very. I actually spoke to the editor today. It's going to be a great film. And
Wow.
in both of these films, I played a very bad person.
Ay,
I mean, that's just the way I ended up. What am I supposed to do? It's not. I just as an actor, I just act someone that I'm not. So really, I'm a good guy. I have to get the bad. My alter ego was just plotting to get out of my system. So in both cases, they were like that. But in terms of acting somebody, I probably want to be someone like, I'd want to be a superhero from the 50s. Superman, Batman.
oh,
I'm not sure.
that's a good one. And also, can you share while you're in this voiceover industry and
Yes.
using your talents as acting, can you share something hilarious that has happened while you were at work?
God, I've been doing this Canine Horror so many years. I will tell you something that actually interesting happened. I wouldn't say it was actually at work, but one of the voiceover stuff that I do is that I record these info line messages. Let's say, for example, here in Lakewood, every other night, if not every night, you get phone calls from organizations. They're raising money. They're trying to bring awareness to a certain
Yes.
issue in the community, that type of a thing. So it was a long day, and I get home, and the phone rings. I pick up the phone, and I hear, "Hello, I'm calling on behalf," and I slam the phone down.
Yeah.
And I stop for a second. I say, "I don't believe it. I just hung up on myself."
No way.
That was me. Yeah, I had done something for an organization. "Hello, I'm calling on behalf of this and this organization. They really, really need your help for only $10,000, whatever it was." I said, and click. I'll tell you something. Again, I don't know if I would call it funny or not, but a few years ago, I was doing a job for raising money for Reb Chaim Kanievsky Shlita for his son of Shlomo Kanievsky. He runs a yeshiva. He has a large yeshiva in Eretz Yisrael, and he came to America to collect money. So I was Baruch Hashem. I was hired to do the narration for video they were doing they were showing around various communities. They were raising money for him. So the videographer at the time was Moshe Schindler from Mint Media, who's very, very big in Lakewood and points beyond. And so Moshe Schindler, he took the half-a-minute clip of me doing this very serious. Reb Shlomo Kanievsky really needs help for his yeshiva Tiferes Tzion. And with your help, again, I'm just whatever the wording was. It was a half-a-minute clip. Okay. I get a phone call about, I don't know, a week or two later from Baruch Perlowitz, who I mentioned earlier. He was the producer of the video that we did last year, The Skull of Genius, and this video we did this year. And he says, Yaakov, let me ask you something. Have you done any real acting? And I'm like, not really, but I would love to. I mean, I did like the Chofetz Chaim Heritage Foundation, the videos that were made for the kids for Tisha B'Av. So that was real. There was real dialogue. There was real acting then.
Okay.
But in a full feature-length film, so to speak, I've never done that before. He said, I'm looking for a character, and I think you'd be great for it. I said, okay, what's the character? His character's name is Borsa, and he's a real evil guy. I'm like, okay, hold on a minute. How did you get to me? He said, well, I saw Moshe Schindler posted on his status that half-a-minute clip of you doing that sales pitch for Shlomo Kanievsky, and I thought you make the perfect guy. I said, how in the world did you see, Baruch? I asked him, how do you see a guy who's doing a sales pitch for Shlomo Kanievsky really needs your help? Please step up to the plate and support this yeshiva. And you saw from that you wanted me to be Borsa. I mean, one of the famous lines, the film of The Skull of Genius actually opens up with a very intense scene. We shot this in Lake George last year in 2019. We shot a gorgeous scene. It was supposed to be sunrise, but it was supposed to be sunset. We had to do sunrise, which took the place in lieu of sunset because it was raining the night before. Be that as it may, I'm standing over there, and I start screaming, "It is time! It is time!" And then that's how the film opens up with very intense music, and that really set the plate for the theme for the whole film. And it was like, wherever I go today, kids are still like, "Are you that guy?" It's funny because his kids come over to me, "Were you that guy that acted in that video?" And I try to snap them out, not because I want to be, because I just want to see where it takes me. And I'm like, what video took me? You know the film? And I'm like, yeah, forgive me. I live in Lakewood. I don't watch films. I'm not in films. I don't do these things. And then I say, I can't. I start laughing because, the kids are so excited. This guy, he's in the film. And it, in the real world, when I say real world, I mean, there's Hollywood and then there's Lakewood.
Right.
And
Lakewood does not even come on Hollywood's radar.
That's not true. We actually have a street here in Lakewood called Hollywood.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah, I'm serious.
That's hilarious.
But
do you live on that street, by the way? Do you live on Hollywood?
No. Only the hoi polloi live in the Hollywood street. No.
So hold on. How did you didn't answer your own question. How did he get to you from the WhatsApp status of you don't know?
We were all on the same WhatsApp status. We had swapped information some years earlier. And I think it just clicked. He said, I know Yaakov's a great voiceover, but maybe he'd be willing to do this video as well. And Baruch Hashem, and we became like this really close-knit family. It's very interesting that there's a lot of talent out there in the film world.
There is.
Really, really is. And I want to tell you something, and I think it's important. I wanted to mention this to you earlier. Let's talk about LinkedIn for a second, if I may.
I love LinkedIn.
Right. So I want to tell you what is my relationship with LinkedIn. So I signed up years ago to LinkedIn, and basically like my main job that I put there, the profile listing was I work for, a charity organization, and that's that. My youngest brother, should live and be well. He said, you know what, you're selling the wrong product. You have to make your voiceover talent as the thing.
Yes.
A year later, especially with the whole COVID mishigas and the craziness, I have met so many people, and also I've done such quirky stuff on there. I can't tell you how many people I've met in the video and the entertainment, Jewish film entertainment industry and I've landed many, many jobs as a result of it. And I've met a lot of great people. But what I wanted to do was, LinkedIn, technically speaking, is a business networking site, and you have to have your tie and your collar and very straight, and you're not allowed to crack any jokes on there. It's because it's all LinkedIn, it's all about business. And I said, no way. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to showcase my talent, which is voiceovers, in a quirky way, which is like one of the first videos that I made over about a year ago is when I did voiceovers from the closet. I don't know if you saw that one. I did voiceovers from the closet. I started talking about that what happens if you're at home and you're away from your studio and you need to do a quick voiceover. I've done a lot of voiceovers. It sounds funny, but I've actually done these quick voiceovers for half-minute jobs, half-minute stints on my phone using a very good recording app, voiceover app. And the clients are very happy with it because even if they have to tweak it and clean it up, they have this so they can do it. So I will go to my closet because the closet is everything's muffled in there, and with the amount of clothing that's in there, it just muffles the sound. It's a perfect place to record something if you have to. I'm not suggesting it to all my future voiceovers talents out there. Right? I'm not suggesting that
my future podcast will take place in my closet.
Right.
I'll
okay.
have to set up my studio in my closet.
Right, so I'm not suggesting that you do that. If you have a studio, it's definitely worth what a studio is obviously that makes not the most sense. You should have a studio. Any voiceover talent should have a real professional studio.
Mm-hmm.
But I went in the closet. And I was describing that once we're already in the closet, you have to understand that there are different ways of doing recordings because I have two bathrooms in my closet. I have a red and blue one, and I had a floral one. I said, now to muffle the sound, if you want a more masculine voice, you cover yourself with the red and blue bathrobe. But if you're looking for the more feminine and soft voice, you want to use the floral towel, which of course is a bunch of baloney. But the point is that it wasn't even so much of that as much as that people began to hear my voice, and they saw that as quirky as well. As the year progressed, and we went into lockdown and so on and so forth, it wasn't even so much about the voiceovers anymore. It became more about how can I put a smile on people's faces using my voiceover. I'll be straightforward. You look at some of my stuff that I posted in the past year. My kids and my wife they go. I mean, with all due respect, them, they go crazy from it because but Tatsi, we're not going to have shidduchim from it because they think that you're crazy and you're doing crazy things and you're putting on your status and it's not good. I said, listen. Let me tell you something. This past year, if we needed to bring more joy, there's no year in my life that I can recall that we had to bring so much joy into the world like this year. And Hashem gave me a talent, whether it's through the acting, the voiceover, the humor, to be able to put a smile on people's faces that it was worth every second of it because it was so. I can't tell you how many people have told me. He said that they've told me, you should know I have waited a week for someone to put a smile on my face. You made my day. You made my this. You made this, and it's worth.
You know which video I love? I love the one when you're falling in the leaves. I can't. I watched that so many times. It was amazing.
Yeah. Did you see? By the way, did you see the one I posted? It's falling in. I did one falling in the snow also. And
yes, I saw them both.
I really don't want to give away too many secrets here, but I would love to make a whole bunch of series of my videoing, in similar type of scenarios, and I always keep on falling down and. Whatever it is that's there keeps ending up all over the place. I just have no hatzlacha videoing anything out of my studio because if I'm outside, it's either the snow, the leaves, acorns, who knows what, who knows what's next.
And do you see that your following went up much more once you started being your genuine self on LinkedIn?
The following definitely increased. You see, I think that in LinkedIn it happens to be that really, I think that obviously there are a couple of ways of how to get connections, and one is if you have great content. But I think a lot of people, again, I don't want to sound disparaging to anybody. I think you have to fish around a lot. Meaning, when I say fish around, I mean you have to hit that connect button a lot more because not everybody's really looking for your stuff unless you really know how to work LinkedIn well and you hashtag enough. If you put enough hashtag and grab the attention and you hashtag people and grab their attention, you're not going to necessarily get anywhere. I mean, I know people like David Stanton, for example, Bell Saab. These are people that worked for whether even David Stanton, 6 months, a year, whatever it is, they built up a tremendous base. But you have to work. You work at it. You work at it either by constantly posting stuff, or by or just reaching out to a lot of people. So I can't say that I've reached out to that many people in terms of please connect with me, please connect with me, please connect with me. Technically, I could do it. I just haven't. But it definitely has gone up. Am I out there? Do I have like 60,000 people following? Like Shay Rowbottom, who's not on anymore because she just left. I think she put her last podcast last week or something like that. But
she left LinkedIn.
I think she left LinkedIn, if I'm not mistaken.
Why? Okay, we don't have to get into it now.
Yeah, I don't think I don't know if she left it or she just made her last podcast, or one of the two, something like that.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm only on LinkedIn today. I'm gonna do a post, and it's gonna be my 124th day, and I have over like 7,000 followers just because I'm constantly posting.
Right.
Constantly posting, and I'm trying to make a connection between me and the person who's watching it, not me and LinkedIn. It's me and you. That's it.
Right.
Me and
you. That's appropriate. But by the way, you do know that after today's video, you're going to have like 17,000 followers.
Oh yeah. Yaakov, is there anything else you would like to share before we go?
I have lunch in front of me. I'm not sharing.
Finish with mustard.
That I'm not sharing. Hashem gave everybody talents. There's nobody that doesn't have any talents out there. There's nobody that cannot make the world a better place. Tap into what God gave you. It doesn't require that much to think and realize what kind of talents you have. Tap into that. Use it for yourself. Don't only use it because you're looking to make a parnasa, make an extra buck, or make a living for that matter. Utilize it in such a way that you can bring joy to people. You can make other people happy. You can find people jobs. We were not put in this world for ourselves. Our tachlis, our goal, our tafkid, we were put in this world to help other people. We're supposed to be selfless, not selfish. It's very, very important to realize that.
Well, that was Yaakov Berger, the voiceover guy. Thank you so much, Yaakov, for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for hosting me. I really appreciate this. I don't say anymore. This was really nice. It was really great, man. It was so nice to finally meet you. And again, thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yes, thank you. And if people want to get in touch with you, how can they contact you?
I know where to find you. You don't find me. No, you want my phone number? My phone number?
You want them to follow you on LinkedIn? If you have any other social media where they could message you on?
No, I'm on LinkedIn. It's Yaakov Berger at LinkedIn.com. No, just Yaakov Berger. Put in Yaakov, Yaakov Berger. That's no relation to Ham. And am I allowed to give my phone number? I'm just afraid that some interesting people are going to call me.
No, you don't have to give your phone number. Just the place
reach out to you, and then you'll reach out to me, and then we'll go through.
Amazing. So you heard it from Yaakov himself. You could DM him on LinkedIn at Yaakov Berger.
Right. Oh, that was a DM. What does DM mean?
Direct message.
I always thought of like dumb messaging or something. I have no idea what it meant. I know PM. I know what PM means. PM is after AM.
Yeah.
Oh, that's it. PM is private messaging.
Yes, PM is private messaging. PM is on Facebook. So you PM someone on Facebook. You DM someone.
Wait a minute. Let me write this down.
Writing this all down, guys. It's hilarious. So I'm a millennial, so I'm going to teach you what these words mean.
PM, private millennial.
Yes.
Oh, there you go. I knew it meant something.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, DM me for sure. DM me 100%.
DM him on LinkedIn, and if you want to get his phone number, you reach out to me, and I will forward your number to him, and he will give you a call. That was Yaakov Berger. Thank you so much for tuning in to the 43rd episode of Hebrew Hits. I'm your host, Malia, and please go hit that subscribe button on Hebrew Hits Radio, which is on YouTube. Like and share the episode with whoever you can. And please go follow us on all our favorite streaming apps. Again, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher. We are everywhere. And go hit that follow button on Instagram and Facebook at Hebrew_Hits. The accounts on Instagram and Facebook are private. So you have to hit that follow button in order to see what is going on. Well, thank you so much. We'll be back next week. Same time, same place. Bye.